Hello, you beautiful. How is everybody? I sound like a damn monster. I sound like a whole monster saying that. I am so sorry if you hear my fan. I cannot make it up. It's like the 20th of the month, and I bought the air conditioner at the beginning of the month, and my dad has yet to feel good enough to put the damn AC in the window. So I'm hot and I'm not turning the fan off. And I really needed to film this video, but I do not even have the energy to leave my bed. It is currently like 3:30 in the morning. I've been up for about 12 hours now, and I was already on 3 hours of sleep. Usually, I can definitely, come out of the hospital and very quickly become at least hypomanic, and my energy is high and all the things, and I'm dealing with that, but I'm getting ish done, and unfortunately it's not that at all. I just don't require the same sleep when you're not depressed, you know what I'm saying? It's really just that simple. Because I don't have the energy. In fact, I'm quite emotionally drained. I am, currently dealing with some, family things, and it is quite stressful. And I've been dealing with them all day, and I'm just emotionally drained. I've had a few phone conversations with friends, and I feel like because they always last a couple hours at a time, it's just like that can be draining too, because you're trying to remember who you told what to, then you don't repeat yourself, and sometimes you do repeat yourself because you forgot you already told this one that, because you didn't tell the other one that, and you thought I got them too confused. It's a whole fucking thing. But before I continue and tell you why we're here, please hit the like. Hit the dislike. I don't care what you hit, just hit something. If you're gonna sit here and listen to me run my mouth, hit a damn button. Please subscribe. I would love for you to subscribe. And do not forget the bell. If you're gonna subscribe, you got to turn the bell on. Okay? It's gotta be on. I'm here 3 times a week, and yeah, you have to have the bell on, because you just never know what I'm going to be posting, what I'm going to be talking about. And yeah, you can't be missing stuff. You cannot be missing stuff. There's always something going on over here. Like I said, I'm here for you 3 days a week, honey. I do this for you. This is, I guess, very much a prelude to a series that I'm going to be doing on my channel, where every week, every 2 weeks, I haven't decided yet, I'm going to be talking about, growing up in a gang, wanting to be in the streets at a very young age, and letting the streets raise me, right? And all the things that I have, learned throughout the years, on top of all the things that I know to be facts now. I think the hardest part about doing this particular series is, I'm going to have to say a lot of negative things about a lot of people that, most I still respect the whole fuck out of, all these 30 years later. And then some people I sure don't care about. And it's not that I'm going to be using names or incriminating anyone, or, talking about what gang I was in and all the things. Like, that's not a thing. Details like that are not going to be a thing. But I still have to, say the facts. I have to tell it like it is. I have to keep it all the way funky, right? Like, I expect people to be that way with me, so why would I be anything different? And unfortunately, knowing what I know now, it is negative things. There are negative things to say about people that I literally love to this day. I've never met anyone, because I am a female, I've never met another female who has lived the life that I lived, And certainly we all have our struggles, we have our own traumas, and everyone goes through life differently. But no one has ever been even remotely like me or in the same boat, we'll say, right? Or, similar story to mine and any of the things. And I just feel like telling this story and reflecting on how I lived my life, how I chose to live my life, because nobody forced me to live my life in the hood, right? And wanting to kick it with the gangbangers and wanting to join a gang and, being a year on probation just to prove myself, just to make motherfuckers respect me, and show them why I deserved the respect. You reflect back on stuff like that today, and it becomes very obvious that, things were not good. They were not right. I'm 14 years old and I start hanging out with a bunch of dudes, and next thing you know, I want to join a gang, and it's just like, how in the hell did that become my life? Well, I'm going to tell you how it became my life, and I think a lot of people, even though I don't think my story is in any way, shape, or form relatable to most people, right? I think telling this story will resonate with people in a way that you can overcome, the hardest battles in life. You can overcome the reputation that you have spent so many years building for yourself. You can change, you can do better, you can have a beautiful life. You just have to want to change. And unfortunately, when you grow up in a gang and you're about that gang life, there's always, chances of going to jail, catching cases, felonies, having felonies on your record. And that is, not my story, but that's definitely the things that come with being in a gang. You end up in prison or 6 feet under, like I had accepted very early on, probably by the age of 16. By then I had been in a pretty severe, shootout. And I think I realized very early on in my life that, like, no day is promised. And the choices that I had made only end two ways. Like I said, in prison or obviously 6 feet under. And I think that's such a scary, scary place for any 16-year-old girl, little ass girl, to come to terms with. And, the more that my friends encourage me to share my stories, and the more that I share with them, and they reflect with me, and they're like, "Oh my God, you were groomed." And I'm like, no, I was not. You cannot say that about my friends. I love my fucking friends, right? I'm still friends with most of my friends for 30 years now. 30 years is a long time to have the same friends. And they're no longer my gang affiliates, they're no longer my fellow gang members. No, they're my friends and I love them. But unfortunately, there is a lot of negative to be said. And it does. It makes me a little nervous. I won't lie. It makes me a little nervous. But I think everybody has a story, just because I think mine is pretty rare. I still think that a lot of people can relate to it, and at least compare my struggles, my issues that I've had. And I think more than anything, maybe better understand where I'm coming from and where I have come from compared to where I am today. In the last couple years, I think everything about me has changed, from my temperament to my ego to my ability to be humble for the first time in so many years. I'm about to be 46 years old in October. My life has always been hard since I'm a child. I was watching my sister, who was 4.5 years younger than me, our whole lives. And then 11 years after I was born, my baby brother was born. And until he was 3 years old, I took care of him and my little sister. My mom was a single mom. She had to work, and I had to grow up really fast. I had to be, the advocate for our household. My mother, my sister, they they're not the best advocates for themselves, and I felt like I always had to fight somebody. I had to fight the system. I had to fight the court system. I had to fight the judge. I had to, there's a million things, right? Like I was always fighting for the respect that I didn't need from people, right? Like I don't need people's respect to fucking live and breathe, and you know what I'm saying? No, 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 no. But everything to me was, you're gonna respect my motherfucking face, You could talk all the shit behind my back you want to, but you're gonna respect my face. I think my reputation has always been extremely important to me, and I worked very hard to create a reputation for myself very early on in my life. Way too early, right? Like before I even knew who I was as an adult, I didn't even know who I was, and I had this identity and I had to keep it, and I had a reputation and I had to make sure that reputation held on tight, and I kept my status as, a good gang member. Oh God, that sounds so crazy. It sounds so crazy. I think during this series I'm going to say a lot of things that are just going to sound silly. They're going to sound so silly to what I call normies, normal people who don't join gangs when they're 14 years old. And I think one of the hardest things that I've had to realize in my 40s, being a whole ass, big ass adult, is I had a lot of adults in my life and nobody protected me. Nobody kept me safe. Nobody made me feel safe. Nobody made me feel necessarily loved. I think the way that I maybe I thought I should have been loved, or maybe I didn't allow myself to get close to even my family members, even the adults in my life that I trusted, And I realized how much the adults in my life just didn't care. They didn't care. And that is how I see it, And I think, having to talk about my family and my mother, my dad, like I don't want anyone to, be critical of them and mistakes they made 45 years ago, you know what I mean? But it's like you kind of have to shit on people once you've healed, once you've healed these wounds, the scars tell a story. And I want my scars to tell a story. I've always let my scars tell stories here on YouTube. And I know that, this channel has only been around literally not even 3 years yet. I don't even know how long. I think like it's going on 2 years, honestly. I think I've only had this channel 2 years. And, I've been on YouTube for 6 years. I think so much of my story, so much of my life in my 40s, since I've come to YouTube in 2020, so much of that has been lost, when I lost my original channel. So much content has been lost when I, had my second channel hacked. And there's so many missing puzzle pieces. And I know that I'm never going to lose this channel because I know exactly how I lost the first two. And trust me, it ain't going to happen a third time. 3 strikes, you're out, and I'm not ready to be out. I'm not out till I say I'm out. And one thing there isn't is crying in baseball. There is no crying in baseball. I actually really love saying that damn saying, and I say it way too much, I think. And something I've learned more than anything, just being on YouTube, having a channel, and being, this tiny little public figure of some sort, it's really difficult to, talk about your past, and then people, don't want to let you live in the present. They want you to live in the past where they can talk about you and have a story to tell and have an audience and feel important. And, nobody is allowed to make you live in the past. Nobody's allowed to do that to you. And one thing I say often is I'm certainly not licking up the spilled milk on the concrete. The past, it's spilled milk. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do? I can't change the past. I wish I could change a lot of the past, sure. But that past also made me who I am today at almost 46 years old. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud of the human that I am. And I never thought I'd see that day. I came to YouTube 6 years ago, and very early on in my journey on YouTube, I, started, I guess, a series, and it was, becoming a better human. And it really is, like, if you're somebody who's watched me all 6 years, like, you remember, that's probably one of the things that maybe caught your attention, like, I know a lot of people, who follow me to this day. They're like, oh, Diary of a Homeless Chick, or Becoming a Better Human. In 2018, 2019, I moved to Florida because my sister and brother-in-law were going to adopt my youngest son. I have 2 sons. One of them will be 26 this year, and the other one just turned 14. And it was not hard. It was not hard to, make the decision, okay, he's going to go with my sister and brother-in-law. They live in Florida. I'm here in Waukegan, a suburb right out of Chicago, Illinois. And I'm going to go to Florida, and I'm going to follow him, and I'm going to be a part of his life. And for a lot of years, I was very present in his life, even though my sister and my brother-in-law were adopting him, and, they were officially, and legally and all the things, his parents. And, the biggest reason that that's even part of my story is because I was in a gang. Because I allowed myself to be manipulated into something I should have never done. The worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life was losing my child to the system, to DCFS. Although I deserved to lose my child because of the environment that I had him in. I deserved that, right? It only happened because I was in a gang. And every worst parts of my life is simply because I was in a gang. And there's a story to be told, there's a story to be told. And I just don't want anyone to feel hurt or slighted, because I do think that a lot of my friends do watch my YouTube channel, whether they comment or not. I do think that a lot of my friends watch my channel, and they're probably going to watch this series. And will I refer to them Probably, right? Like, I'll give them nicknames. Yous won't know who they are. But if they are watching, they're going to know if I'm talking about them. They're going to remember the story. They're going to recall that happening. You know what I mean? And there is a lot of negative to be said about being in a gang, as a girl especially. Look at my baby trying to learn how to go up these stairs. I can't get him to go down the stairs. I can't get him to go up the stairs. And thank goodness for that, what is that, like around his chest? Because, yeah, otherwise, if I don't pick him up to get on them stairs, he won't even move on the stair. I don't know if he's scared because we don't have any stairs in this house, but he has a whole palace that has quite a bit of like stairs, you know, a cat tower, cat house or whatever. And he goes up and down that just fine. He gets up and down on the fucking furniture and everything else, but he is like terrified and petrified of these stairs. Anyway, I just looked down at my phone. Sorry about that. But yeah, getting him to come inside is definitely a chore. I think I lifted him up to get it. Yep, sure did. Yes, because he does not want to come in. And we were outside for almost an hour this day. Oh, wait, you guys gotta watch. Look at how he just plops. He is done for. He has had enough fresh air for the next week. Wow, only me talking over 20 minutes again. So here we are playing Curly from the beginning. I just thought you guys would appreciate seeing him and watching him the way I was. Because I was just watching him the whole time. Sure, I was filming, but it was up on the tripod and stuff. So I was just watching him totally, like, get to know what it is to be in the outside in the world, you know. And he loves it. He does love it. He loves going out there. But I'll only take him out in the morning right now because he is not fixed yet. He won't be fixed until I think like the 5th of next month. And I just don't want him outside looking for no kitty. Because I definitely do not want him spraying. I do not want him HORNY. I don't know why, but I hate that word. And there's just certain words. I cuss like a sailor, but there are certain words that I can't even say up out my mouth. I lived in the past for far too long. I held on to the 90s and everything that I experienced in the 90s, every good thing that I experienced in the 90s. I think I held on to that for a long, long time. In fact, I know I did until I was in my mid-30s. I still was hanging around the same fucking people. The same dudes. It's not even like there was any girls. There was no girls ever. Well, for the first year, maybe year and a half. I don't know. But like, there hasn't been any other girls in the gang with me in forever, at least in our area. Okay, I'll just call it an area. That way it don't sound silly to nobody. But all I can do is, you know, speak my truth, live in my truth. I know the truth, you know what I'm saying? And it doesn't matter what anybody thinks of my truth or what anybody wants to use against me today. And I just have to remember that. I didn't live the terrible life that I lived for no reason. I feel like I'm supposed to tell this story and people are supposed to be able to relate to my content when I do content like this. No matter what, I've never been embarrassed of my life. I've never been embarrassed of myself. Certainly, I've made terrible decisions, and so much of what I went through, I put on myself, you know? Nobody did it to me. I did it to myself. Unintentionally most of the time, of course, but like, for real, half of the bad things, no, not even half, more 80% of the bad things that have happened to me in my life are my own damn fault. I also know that I have an ex-friend who, you know, is obsessed along with her husband, possibly her daughter, possibly a friend of a friend, right? Very that. I don't know who's running with her and who she's sending into the YouTubes next, but it's been going on for 2 years now. And I'm sure she'll be passing my video around, which I appreciate in advance because, I do make money here on the tubes. That is the whole point of me being here, to make money and to make content. But I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a problem with it. And I don't recommend that a single person reach out to me and tell me what I should or shouldn't say on my YouTube channel. This is my life. This is my truth. This is everything that has led up to this moment. Every bad thing that I've gone through, I'm healing from. And healing is the most painful thing I've had to do yet in my life. I thought, giving my rights over as a parent and letting my sister and brother-in-law adopt my child, I thought that was the hardest thing I could ever do in my life. Healing is extremely painful. Healing can, fuck your whole head up. It really can. And it will if you let it. And, I've been there, done that, very that. So that's just facts. This is my story, and I'm allowed to tell my story, and I'm going to tell my story, and I'm going to be raw and honest and as transparent as I possibly can. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed of the way I lived my life. I'm not embarrassed of any of my decisions. I don't regret anything in my life. I don't regret a single thing in my life. Would I change it if I could? Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking back now, yes. 10 years ago, I guarantee you I would tell you I wouldn't change a thing. It really does show how, you change over the years. And nobody, again, gets to make you live in your past. Nobody gets to tell you where you're going to live at. And, everyone has a story, and it should be told. People should learn from one another and find ways to relate to people. Because when you support someone, you don't have to support everything they say and do. You just have to support who you believe they are, at least on social media, right? Who you believe they are to be at the core. And, one thing I'm not is a bad person. That's definitely one thing I'm not. And I'm certainly no liar. I wouldn't dare come on here and tell lies when there's 250 dudes in this world who know the truth, and a couple females, I suppose. I really do hope that you guys enjoy getting to know one of the biggest, I guess, chapters in my life. I let it go on for 30 years, And, it's time to, say to the universe, I'm so glad that chapter has been closed, finally, and forever. Do I have friends for life out of this gang shit? Absolutely. And again, that's why I don't regret it, because I wouldn't have the amazing friends that I've had for the last 30 years. And they're some of the greatest friends any girl could ever ask for. There's nothing like having a large group of big brothers, you know what I'm saying, your whole life. And that's very much what it's been, and they would do anything for me just like I would do anything for them, no matter what I say about them in this, series. So I guess I'm going to end it here. I don't really know what I came on here to say, but Tuesday at 8 o'clock p.m. will be, I guess, edition number 1. And I guess we'll go from there. We'll see how it goes. I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Thank you for sitting here watching Curly and just checking him out and seeing how he likes to hang outside. It's one of his favorite things. And again, I only do it in the morning, and that's if I'm usually up all night, working, and I'm still up early in the morning. I'll take him outside, and he is getting so much better getting up and down the stairs, even though he's still terrified. And he wants to come outside so bad, and he knows he has to have his leash and stuff on. And then I can't even get him to go out the door even once I get it on. But he'll cry and scream and make noises like a whole animal. I suppose he's a cat. Yeah, right. Anyways, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, do not forget the notification bell. You do not want to miss this series. And if you're feeling sweet, hype this video. Editing Tyra here. I will officially see you guys on Wednesday at 8 p.m. And until the next time, peace out, Girl Scouts.